Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow in Pit Lane's weekly get-together, where we just sit around and have a chat about all things that happened on the weekend in the wonderful world of motorsport. And yet again, we've got an absolute shipload to be talking about tonight. The Italian Grand Prix from the Temple of Speed, Monza. Another win to Max Verstappen, returning to form and showing the straight line speed of the Red Bull. But nobody's talking about that. They're all talking about team orders at McLaren again. Should Oscar Piastri had followed team orders and moved out of the way and let Lando Norris in front? We'll be chatting more about that in a moment. Also, speaking of Max Verstappen, bit of news today. This week, he's going to Ferrari. He's driving a Ferrari next weekend, in fact. He's also driving a Porsche. Believe it or not, yes, he's going to be competing at the Nürburgring, at the Nordschleife, in the endurance series there. And believe it or not, despite having 4 world championships, he's got to go through the school and prove that he's capable of driving at the Nordschleife. So he's going to drive a GT4 Porsche, possibly on Saturday, and then hopefully his Max Verstappen racing Ferrari GT3 on Sunday. So that's happening as well. Speaking of GT3 and GT4, big weekend at the Bend last weekend. Good racing in GT3, but GT4 was an absolute revelation. Another fantastic field, great racing, right an extraordinary drive-through from the rear of the grid. There's World Endurance Championship from Texas and Circuit of the Americas. There's MotoGP. There's state racing from Queensland. There's so much more to talk about it. Joining us once again, we have our panel. They are Peter Johnson, Richard Outram, and the man from Queensland himself, Mr. Mark Jones. G'day, guys. How are we all?
Good, thank you, Brett. Great, excellent.
Well, let's talk about the chaos that ensued behind Max Verstappen. We said last week that we thought Max Verstappen would probably be very competitive at Red Bull at Monza because of their straight line speed that they showed at Silverstone earlier in the year, and they certainly did that. Max Verstappen was in a class of his own. But in second place, well, for most of the race, it was Lando Norris, but briefly, it was Oscar Piastri until the radio message came across and said, Oscar, would you mind just dropping back behind Lando? However, that was all sort of planned. Pete, I know you watched it very carefully and you've got some things to say. What was your impression of it all?
Well, I think it was the right thing to do because before they swapped, Piastri and Norris swapped positions, they had a discussion with Lando saying because Leclerc was catching Piastri, and they didn't want him to be caught up with Leclerc, so they said, "Can we pit him first?" And Lando said, "Yes, if I won't be compromised, yes." And so they pitted Oscar first, and then a lap later pitted Piastri first, then a lap later pitted Lando, but unfortunately he had a mucked up pit stop. So because they said he wouldn't be compromised, I think they did the right thing in telling them to give the place back. But also they were told once that happened, they were free to race, and they didn't appear to race after that. They didn't appear to be racing each other after that. But it was better than. I think they did the right thing because it was better than Oscar coming fourth and losing more points than he did. The gap's only dropped by 3 points. And I think it was all about damage limitation.
I think the thing that has upset some people is that complication of the pit stop. I mean, it was, had everything gone smoothly for Lando, and by some chance had, Oscar still been in front and actually had taken advantage of the undercut in a normal, pure racing sense, that, it would have been, okay, well, you're only in that position because we brought you in first. But the argument that Oscar used at the time, that others have used, is that the fact that McLaren stuffed up the pit stop for Lando, and instead of the 1.9 second pit stop that Oscar took, it was over 5 seconds for Lando after the front left wheel had some problems. So how long do you leave it? I mean, is that just part of racing? And had Lando pitted first and still had those problems with his left-hand front wheel, and Oscar had got in front then, I mean, that would have been big deal. That's the way it goes. That's racing.
If it was only a matter of the pit stop, and it wasn't the pitting first, if it was only a matter of the pit stop, as in Lando pitted first and they got a 5-second pit stop. If it was only just a matter of that, then I think they would have let it go. As Oscar said on the radio, I thought we agreed that if we got a slow pit stop, it was just, that's motor racing. But because it was that and the deal that they made with pitting Lando second, I think that's what the issue was.
Richard, what was your take?
Oh, poor old Oscar was between a rock and a hard place on that one. He couldn't win. No matter which way he went, he was going to look like it was always going to look ugly for him if he didn't give the place back. The team would have he'd lose respect for the team. It wasn't good. It wasn't good for him, but he was he had no other choice. He had to give it back because Lando had already done that for him in Hungary, and had fought Captain tooth and nail not to. But
I think that was the difference, wasn't it? I mean, when you compare the two of it, I mean, there was lots of Oscar was once again very cool, calm, and collected. He said his piece and said, well, I'm under the impression that is just part of racing. However, if their team orders and that's what you want me to do, that's what I'll do. And he did it basically immediately. The interesting thing is that in spite of a lot of rumours that have gone round, Lando has now come out and said, I didn't ask for that. It wasn't a case of me getting on the radio and saying, move him out of the way. Lando sort of more or less said, I sort of accepted that, oh, okay, we've stuffed up, the pit stop's been stuffed up, that's my race done. And the fact that, that Oscar did, let him past anyway, Lando is obviously very grateful for, and it has kept them together in terms of kept them close, because as Pete was saying, if Leclerc had have got through and got into third place, so the only people that would have been happy with the Tifosi certainly wouldn't have helped Oscar. And as it turns out, it is only 3 points, and the way things are going is Oscar's got a big enough break now that if he just loses 2 or 3 points every race. The interesting thing will be if they get to the end of the season, and we can just keep our fingers crossed that this doesn't happen, if Lando suddenly gets up and wins by 3 or 4 points, and people will go, well, there you go, if he hadn't have, if he'd been a bit selfish, Oscar would be world champion today.
Yes. But,
Mark?
Well, to me, it was just clearly payback for Hungary last year.
Yeah.
And by Oscar pointing out that I'm doing this because you ask, and making no further fuss about it, it's continuing his psychological warfare with Lando and proving, I guess, that he's in a better mind space than his teammate is. And with Formula One, that War is just as much a part of the championship with as the racing itself.
And he's certainly got. You'd have to think that he's done himself. Oscar's done himself no harm with the team for doing the right thing. If he had have whinged and moaned and put up a fight about it, or left it to the last minute to be a bit of a show off or whatever, for whatever reason, it was like, no, they're the team orders. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I'll do as I'm told. So I think that, that at some stage you would hope that that's going to come back, the karma will come back, and they'll go, no, well, hang on a second, Oscar did the right thing at Monza. No, we owe him one.
And Oscar probably didn't know about the discussion beforehand when they were pitting Lando, when they told him, no, you won't be, Oscar won't undercut you, it's all right. And Oscar probably didn't know about that discussion till after the race. So when he was arguing,
well, I think he did, because they said to him, they basically said that you're coming in first, but you'll need to cede that place back. We're bringing you in first because to protect you from Leclerc. But if you we've got to do the right thing by Lando's basically, because Lando's done the right thing by saying, no, you pitted. I know I'm supposed to be first, but he's under threat. The only person I'm under threat by is Oscar. Lando wasn't going to catch Max. Oscar wasn't going to catch him. Nobody was going to catch Max. So under the circumstances, it was fairly straightforward. But anyway, it was
kind of taken away a bit from how good Max was on the weekend. Like it's but by the same token, you think, oh, it's Max. Some the days when he's on top of the world, you need explosives to stop him from winning.
The interesting thing was that Max was very clear afterwards that if he'd have been in Oscar's position, he wasn't given any bloody. He was going to do a Seb Vettel. It was going to be multi-31 or whatever it was.
multi-21.
Multi-21. He was. It would be.
What's that translates to stuff you? Is it?
Yeah, it's like it was almost like
multi-8-4.
Oh, he did the right thing. Oh, how quaint.
Well, that's another reason why McLaren's doing so well. They work as a team. I mean, Tsunoda just finished on Monday afternoon.
Yes.
I didn't think Max would give the spot back so easily on the first turn. I thought he would argue about that, but he didn't. He gave it back.
Yeah, well, that was probably a good thing. I think that I think that also the reason that Max was happy to do that is Max was very comfortable. Look, I'm just so much faster in a straight line than these, even without DRS. I'm just comfortably quicker than everybody else in a straight line here. I'm going to be able to get back in front as long as I'll do it at the right spot. I'll let him through, and then the moment DRS comes up, I'll just blast past him again and run away, and that's what he did. Won't be quite as easy as at Baku or most of the other circuits that we're going to, where the straight line speed advantage that the Red Bulls obviously have in the low downforce configuration won't be as good, I would imagine, for Baku. That the McLarens will be back at the front of the field again, and then we'll see if Oscar's actually in a position to take a win, whether he'd be quite so quick to move out of the way. But I think he did the right thing. Yeah. Pete, you said before the show you were a bit, and I sort of picked it up as well. You've been a bit interested with some of the mainstream media coverage of the event over the weekend.
Well, they neglected to talk about the Leclerc Piastri situation. They just said, Oscar was forced to give the position back, but they neglected to talk about the other stuff. And boo, Oscar was forced to give the position back. So I just thought they misreported it, and they quite often do that, unless there's they either don't report about motorsport unless there's a major disaster and a major crash and someone gets killed or injured, that they don't report it, or when they do report it, they don't report it accurately, and it's really starting to make me angry.
I think in their defence, I'd say from putting the journalist hat on and from working, like in media outside of motorsport media, I know that the complexities of motorsport really frustrate the hell out of sports editors, Like, as I've said before, I mean, you would go in and they'd say, oh, yeah, who won the big race? And you'd say, well, in fact, there were 3 big races. And they go, yeah, no, but who won the main race? Well, there wasn't a main race because it's actually 3 separate rounds of the... Oh, for Christ, we don't have room for that. Just who was the big winner for the weekend? Oh, I suppose so-and-so got the... Right, that's what we're running, you know, Glenn Seaton wins touring car round at Phillip Island. You know, it's like, well, he finished on, he got the most points, but he didn't actually win the round. We don't care about that. We don't have time to go into the machinations of this and that. I mean, it's like, you know, there is a race and someone
like
wins.
an
That's
additional
all we've got.
An additional 3 sentences just taxes the hell out of everybody.
Well, it
They're
actually...
knuckle draggers, come on. They're knuckle
But
draggers. They can barely stand upright, most of these sporting journalists. I mean, I've had to even stop watching Channel 9 because they won't stop rugby before a big match. They had 7 days with no news at all other than rugby. So how are they ever going to understand motor racing?
Yeah, I think it's there, but it's also, I mean, you said about the you know, every single column inch, using the old expression, every single column inch in a newspaper is solid gold and is worth thousands. And as someone who actually, you know, had to sit there as a sub editor for a newspaper, and it was just a local newspaper, but had to sit there for hours and hours and on end and find a way of getting that story from, you know, 725 words down to 723 words without losing any there, and you had to do it because otherwise that was simply not going to fit on the page, or it would look very bad if you did. So you had to find,
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
But no one reads paper print anymore, unfortunately.
Well, not anymore. But yeah, there is also the time considerations, as you know, with, you know, like within pit lane. I mean, when we were doing that, I mean, we say it was it's a half-hour weekly motorsport magazine show. It wasn't. It was a 23-minute motorsport news and magazine show, because that's, you know, by the time you take the breaks out, there were 2 breaks of about 2 minutes each. There was the opening credits, which was you know, your 30 seconds, and then you had either your closing credits, or in our case, that's one of the reasons for the band as well. I mean, it basically gave us a little bit of extra program time, because you've got to give people credits. I mean, they don't nowadays. That really drives me mad. But, you know, my impression, the tradition dictates, as far as I'm concerned, that, you know, if you're working on a television show, if you're part of the team that put it all together, then you really need to have credits. So that was all part of the thing. But that's one of the reasons they don't have credits anymore, because they just say, hey, that's 30 seconds or 45 seconds of the show that we've got extra to do other things, rather than just put up a list of names that nobody's going to read except for their friends and family.
Yeah, well, that's...
Yeah, I'm probably not that sympathetic to them, really, when I see stories of old retired footballers celebrating, Save a Chicken Week or something like that. And you go, I'm sorry, nobody's interested. Well, they shouldn't be.
Well, they shouldn't be. The thing is, they are. That's the thing. I mean, you know, those things. Yeah, it's like I always said. You know, like say, oh, motorsport doesn't get the coverage that, you know, other sports does. You know, motorsport doesn't attract 80,000 people every week. I mean, you know, one Collingwood match at the MCG attracts a crowd bigger than Bathurst. The only thing that attracts, you know, a bigger crowd for motorsport is the Australian Grand Prix. Not even the bike Grand Prix attracts the sort of crowd that, you know, like a Collingwood Essendon or a Collingwood Carlton match is going to get on a Friday night at the MCG, where 94,000 people are going to turn up.
But that then leads into the discussion about street circuits, because that's then is motorsport's answer to get bigger crowds to the racing, to have street circuit racing in within the bounds of a major city.
That'll be why this weekend at the Bend will be interesting to see what sort of a crowd they get. I think it will be a good crowd. They're certainly making it as easy to get out there as possible. They're putting on sort of, you know, regular and cheap buses from Adelaide, from the Central Business District, to get people out there, because there's no trains or anything to get people there, and it's not that far. It's not that far of a drive, but you
Not
talk
Phillip
to
Island
people.
distance.
No, but you talk to people in Adelaide, and you think that like it was somewhere across the Nullarbor Plain somewhere. It's like, oh, I'm not going all. But I said to someone the other day, I was going out to Malala, and I was staying in Adelaide, and they went, "Geez, you're going to drive all the way out there every day?" And I said, "Well, it's only about 35 minutes." Oh, geez, 35 minutes every day, there and back. Ooh.
Yeah.
None of them drive more than 10 minutes to get to their work.
That's one of the things
yeah.
about. That's one of the things like Morgan Park gets healthy crowds because people living out in places like the Darling Downs will happily travel further to go to events, and it's the
Same as
with
Winton.
and same with Malala, I assume too, and
Yeah,
other rural,
you
and
get the
I
local
assume
you get the
Collie Motorplex in Western
yeah.
Australia is the same, and
Yeah, I think that is, and that's sort of the American. That's sort of the American thing, because obviously all of the tracks are in the middle of nowhere in America, but each event is an event, and it's all it's big about it's like the Bathurst 12 Hour. It's like you come, you plan for the weekend, you leave on Friday night in your RV, you camp at the track or you camp somewhere close, you make a big weekend of it, and you leave sort of straight after the race or even sometimes before the race on Sunday to make sure you're home for work in plenty of time for Monday. But it's more of an event, and people are willing to come from those distances. I mean, there's the supercar round at Winton was a huge event, and you would have people from literally 3 states turning up. You'd have the people, all the locals from northeast Victoria would turn up, but you'd have also people would come down from the Mallee. You'd have people from Goulburn and Canberra and southern New South Wales. You'd have people from from Melbourne, of course, and then you'd have people who drive straight across from South Australia as well. So it was in
Denmark and
it was very very
And
it was
Gambier
very
and
very popular.
yeah,
And,
Mount Gambier, yeah.
yeah, so. Yeah, it's a good way to do it, and yet you've got a track like Phillip Island, and pretty much no matter what you do, you can't get a crowd to Phillip Island. Not a good crowd because it's
just too remote.
You can't get across the bridge.
yeah, it's when you do get a crowd, it's a nightmare getting in and out. It's not too bad for the MotoGP because most of the spectators are on bikes.
Ride motorbikes, yeah.
So it's a lot easier. But I mean, we've been to Phillip Island historic meetings where they've had sort of 18 to 20,000, and you can be 2.5 to 3 hours just before you even get onto the bridge, let alone start to run up the Bass Highway to get back home. It's
Well, I didn't buy a property on Phillip Island, quite literally.
Well, I would, I would have. I remember, Dad always used to tell the story about being offered back in the late '60s. A block of land at Phillip Island, or the early '60s, was offered a block of land at Phillip Island for £10, and he said, "What you'd give me the £10? I wouldn't live at that shithole, mate." So wasn't even slightly interested, and I sort of said later, it's like, damn, that would have been a very good £10 investment, but I mean, it's a fabulous circuit. That's what Tony Cochran always used to say. What a great circuit! What a shame it's down in this dump.
I like Phillip Island. It's just it'll never have a 4-lane road going there, because all those houses either side and the wildlife and parts of it aren't even wide enough to have a 4-lane road, and they're not going to build another bridge.
Well, this is Well, I think the bridge thing is a big problem, and also you can't do much. You can't do much on the island itself in terms of making they've done the best that they can do with the blue line and all the rest of it to try and get people in and out. But the problem is they don't use it enough. I mean, even for the historics, they don't use it. They get a really big crowd there because it costs them money. I know that they were talking about trying to get people out of Calder a lot easier after major drag meetings and the the cost of getting the police and getting the permits required to basically have people in place to waive stop traffic on the colder highway and then wave people through so they could get people out easier was in the tens of thousands. It was and ridiculous amounts of money. So yeah, not too good.
You got to wonder that the price scale is set by the by police's expectations of what they need to do to get crowds out of Taylor Swift concerts in football
Yeah,
grounds, and
yeah, that's
expect
it. I mean,
everyone to be able to afford to pay those rates.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's not cheap. Hey, we'll say hello to a few of the regulars are here
yes.
today. We haven't caught up with everybody yet. G'day to Naggers once again.
Yeah.
Evening all. Box joining us once again. So g'day to Box. Good to see you there. Mad Cow Mark again. Good to see you again, Mad Cow. Great to catch
Good
up with
evening,
you.
everyone.
I'm assuming that I don't know, Mad Cow. I'm assuming you watched. Santa Pod on the week. I caught up with a little bit, and there was just so much happening. I kept flicking over to Santa Pod. The European Drag Racing Championships finals were at Santa Pod, and great turnout of cars there. Good crowd too. Very good crowd. Um, okay, so let's talk about that. We'll see some of the things that Mad Cow saying that. Like a few weeks ago, what they want Lando to win the championship. I don't know whether they do. I certainly the media, the British media, and the Sky F1 would like Lando to win, but I'm not sure whether the McLaren team couldn't give a stuff.
The team is only interested in the constructors' championship because that's money.
Ah,
So
Zach cares.
yeah, okay. Management might care, but by the same token, having
Zach's
your
management.
driver, yeah, but the prestige of the driver's title eclipses the constructor's title.
Oh, for us it does, and I think for
For
everybody.
everybody, it does.
But it's also remember it's not just the prestige. It's also it's money. That's the big thing. I mean, it's a massive amount of money they get paid every.
Well, already won the constructor's title, so that's not really
pretty
that
much
much.
so. Yeah.
Not pretty much. They're like 600 points, and
I think technically
Ferrari in second is like
technically,
200. It's the difference between first and second in the constructors' championship is stupid.
yeah, it is. I mean, it's a total domination. But the
You could park a Navy destroyer in that gap.
but yeah, I think that I think
apparently
that
not sewn up until Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan is when it'll be officially so. And I think
Well, yeah.
at that point they'll probably say that they're probably waiting until they see what happens in Azerbaijan and just saying like, okay, now we've definitely got it. Now we just concentrate on the drivers. And I don't think that because they won't want to upset either of them. I mean, because they're obviously two very good drivers. Whatever we might think of sort of Lando's brain fades occasionally. He's obviously a very fast driver, and there'd be plenty of other teams out there that'd be very keen to get hold of him. And obviously Oscar. I mean, like you'd have to think at some stage with that, with the last name like Piastri, it would be like, a bit like Dan Ricciardo. It would be like, at some stage, we would like to see him driving a Ferrari, and the Tifosi would love to see him driving a Ferrari, and probably I think in the deep of his heart, I think Oscar would like to one day be driving a Ferrari, but at the moment, until they get competitive. He's probably in the best spot that he could possibly be at the moment. Mad Cow saying, let's see, 3 races ago, Oscar flat spotted his tyres. They sent Lando to the pits, left Oscar out there, losing more than a second a lap. Yeah, well, I think from memory, I think Oscar had a little bit to do with that as well, because I think they did offer him to come in, and he basically said, no, I want to just stay out for a moment. Next race, Oscar leading by 4 seconds. They pitted Oscar, left Lando out to run long. Loses by over a second. Why not switch them? Yeah, I don't know. They've certainly made some they've certainly made some mistakes. I mean, that have there. Saying he says that Zach Brown wants Lando to win the championship. I'm not sure about that because I know
I
Zach
don't know.
is.
Yeah.
I know Zach is very, has got a huge soft spot for Australians in general. I mean, he was a big rap for a big rap for Daniel.
Yeah,
He's
Daniel won
also
his first Grand Prix for the team under his leadership. I mean, it counts for a lot. No,
Oh, we lost. Well,
Brett's no longer partially shattered. He's now actually shattered. Yeah. I guess
I'd
leading
like
on,
go on, Mark.
I was just going to say, well, leading on from one World Championship to another, we had the World Endurance Championship. Had the Lone Star Le Mans race at the Circuit of the Americas, and we had a long-awaited first time for an Australian to win in the World Endurance Championship in its since Mark Webber was racing for Porsche back in the years immediately after his retirement from Formula One, and it was Matt Campbell alongside Kevin Estre and Lauren Vantor who got. It was a win that they fought for and had to climb through the field in very trying conditions. It started with rain going on and visibility that was dreadful, and then it got worse, and so they red flagged the race for a little bit to clean things up a bit. It was so bad that water got into the electrics of one of the BMW hybrids and killed it. And then the race restarted, and it was sort of the same sort of wet, and it just gradually eased off over the space of the next 4 hours. And Vantor had the problem of just tooling around under heavy safety car conditions and heavy wet conditions. Then when Matt jumps in the car, that's when the conditions were easing off a bit, and he was able to climb up to threaten the Ferraris that had led the race for pretty much since the start. And well, the yellow one had some issues, but the two red ones were cooking up front. And then and then they stuck Kevin Estre in to finish the race, and my goodness, did he finish that race! He was brilliant, skiving through, doing Kevin Estre things, and
He's become a
yeah,
real specialist with that, hasn't he? I mean, it's like no matter where you are in the field, just pop Kevin in for the last, for the
yeah,
last
oh,
hour or so, and away he
almost went to
goes.
Le Mans. What 18 seconds short of Le Mans, and that was with three Ferraris to get instead of two. But yeah, they were. Uh, uh, well, Estre and Vantor are reigning champions in the World Endurance Championship. Matt was in the other car that ended up, I think, third in the World Championship last year, and he's moved over to join the sixth car when his IMSA commitments permit. And yeah, and now finally he's got that long overdue. He got a couple of pole positions last year, but didn't get that win. So finally got a World Endurance Championship victory. And Peugeot came home third and fourth after one of the Ferraris. Well, I guess two of the three Ferraris choked. Um, and yeah, so that was a fantastic result for Peugeot, who have been the team that has been kicked the most over the last 3 years of the World Endurance Championship, apart from the small teams that have left the sport.
Well,
Uh,
the other team that's
well, maybe.
how the mighty have fallen has been Toyota. I mean, when you consider
Hmm.
they dominated for so long, and now where did they were well off the pace in this particular race, and they must be looking at some major overhaul fairly soon. I think the problem
Yeah.
is that it was good that the Porsche won, because I think that a lot of people in the World Endurance Championship, particularly over on the IMSA side of the pond, were saying that hang on, this conversion thing isn't really working. The LMP cars, the hybrid
Mm.
cars, are obviously substantially more competitive. It doesn't look like there's much in it, but they just keep winning, particularly Ferrari.
Yeah.
and we're not at the sharp end at all. Well, now they've had a win, they'll feel
Well,
a lot more
Porsche, of course, won the
comfortable.
championship last year, and Estre's Estre Vantor and Lotterer, who were in the six car last year, got a couple of wins on the way to their world title. So yeah, Porsche's been able to be competitive with the LMHs of Ferrari and Toyota.
And then, of course,
But
next year they get
everyone else has
Genesis or Hyundai
been,
joining them. So because that car has been testing, and apparently they're pretty happy with what they see so far. And then after that, we get
and
McLaren and
Ford,
Ford.
yeah, and yeah, McLaren and Ford. Sorry, yeah, it was because Audi plunked into my head and said, "Oh no, wait, they're joining F1." Yeah, yeah.
There's always rumours around. I mean, I've heard sort of, like a few people, like including John Hindhaugh on radio, just sort of saying that, and also Graham Goodwin from Daily Sports Car, just basically saying that the noise is out there that they're saying, well, obviously Formula One is the focus at the moment, but you know Le Mans in particular is a very, very important part of our history, and we were there when pretty much nobody else was there, and now we're out of it, and all these other manufacturers are turning up again. Um, Perhaps at some stage in the future, it's something we need to take a look at, and just see if there's a way that we could make that happen. So who knows? I mean, they could be back. There's still plenty of other rumours around of other manufacturers, including a very bizarre one, which says that apparently the Great Wall, GWM, they've just built a V8 road car, and apparently it was in the launch of that. They've said we at the moment we're building very sensible and very practical cars for the international market, but our next step is going to be to start looking at the performance and sporting side of the equation. And they've had a couple of concepts out there that they've floated, which might indicate that at some stage they might be interested in getting involved as well. So that'd be interesting. We've obviously had the Japanese manufacturers attack and win Le Mans, but we've never had the Chinese. So that would be the next step.
Yeah, well, we've had Link and Co. tooling around in the TCR World Tour, but that's pretty much falling into its own hole at the moment. I mean, even if it's still TCR is still pretty popular in both North and South America,
Well, they can't
but
take a
it's
trick
losing
because
ground.
coming up this weekend, of course, the World Tour
Yeah,
is over at the Bend as part of the support races for the Bend 500, and unfortunately they're really struggling because they had a good turnout. They've got 19 cars on the grid, 11 of those from overseas. Unfortunately, as the things stand at the moment, the 11 cars from overseas are not going to get in until at least Friday afternoon at the
oh,
earliest, and possibly Saturday morning.
really?
They've already said they're probably going to cancel the first race, and basically they're literally going to be unloading them out of the shipping containers if and only if they can clear customs in time. If they can't do that, they might find themselves running with 9 cars. The only thing they could possibly do then, I suppose, is throw some of those international drivers into some of the local cars and
Oh,
run them if necessary. But because
I
they're
can't see
obviously
the
here.
yeah, I can't see the factory supported Hyundai and Link and Co. and Honda squads transplanting themselves into the fleet of idle Gary Rogers Peugeots.
Yeah, well, I think that's the problem. I mean, but they could move into, there's obviously the couple of the other Hyundais running the local Hyundais, so they could possibly stick a couple of drivers in there. But then they would have to. They've obviously got commercial deals with local drivers as well. But they just can't. They just can't take a trick. It was like, we've got 19 cars on the grid. It's going to be fantastic, and then they sort of announced today that, yeah, unfortunately, 11 of them are still stuck in transit and won't get here until late Friday afternoon or early Saturday morning.
Goodness me. I mean,
Well, luckily they're not.
almost.
Go on.
Oh, I'm just having visions now of if you remember the Michel Vaillant movie where they unloaded the race cars from the transporters and raced them to the track to get there on time.
I never saw the movie. I've got one of the I've got the book. Audi gave us a book which I've got here, and it's signed by. I was very lucky. I had it signed by both the artist, the Michel Vaillant artist, but also by Jackie X and Emmanuel Perot and Alan McNish and a few others, which I'm very glad I did now. I wasn't going to because I'm always, I don't, got to get a. And Melissa said, like, for God's sake, we're sitting at a table with them, just, I'm very, very glad she taught me into it. Or she didn't talk me into it. She took the book and went and said, could you please sign that for my idiot friend there.
And Jackie X has a long history with the comic books as well. Like, he had his own long-running comic book that of the same sort of ilk as Michel Vaillant. But yeah, so he would have.
Talking about being late to get cars to the track. An old friend of mine who's now passed, Pat Ratliff, was working on the Maseratis for the 1956, I think, Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And anyway, they were running late, and they in those days the Yarra Lower Crossing was a ferry, and they pulled up just as it was sailing off, and they go, "Oh, can't you come back? We're going to be late for the race, and we need to get the Maserati there." Well, he happened to be an Italian man who was driving. He goes, "Oh, mamma mia! Let's go back and get them."
We've got these glorious 300Ss sitting here waiting for the ferry.
Yeah,
Those were the
another
days.
year he drove Maserati flat out down St Kilda Road to get to the Grand Prix circuit, which would have been 150 mile an hour at least in those days.
Remember the for the World Endurance Championship at Sandown when they drove the Rothmans Porsches up from Hamilton's place.
Yes, I've got photos.
It was just down near. It was just down near Browns Road. So it was like, there's no point, by the time we load them onto a bloody transport and all that, we could be there and sitting there, and so they got permission to do it. They stayed within the speed limit, but they just drove them out, drove them up the Princess Highway, straight into Sandown, straight into the pits.
Oh, it's glorious, isn't it? It's
I've got some wonderful photos of that.
And that's something that they've been attempting to revive at various parts of like at the Bathurst 12 Hour, where all the teams drive their cars into the town on the day before.
Yeah, it's become a real gimmick, and it certainly works. Right. They did it down at Phillip Island as well, and I know that from talking to a lot of people down there, there were a lot of people who turned up at that GT festival, particularly the first one, at the track simply because of that, because they went there and it's like, wow, look at these cars, oh, they're all racing, Mum, Dad, can we go and watch them? Can we go and watch? So makes a huge difference. Yeah, it's great. I mean, we've run it. They used to send out the press releases, the video release with the drive over the bridge and all the rest of it. And you always ran it because it was it looked good. I mean, it's coming across the bridge and going past beware of Echidna's crossing and beware of Koal, beware of drop bears and all the rest of it. So, yeah, great. It's great stuff.
I remember the Commodore's got. Sorry, Brett, you go.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I walked to the track when I was 16 to see the Commodore's Cup at Phillip Island with, chaparrals and Madiches and Ansett elephants and stuff like that. And the the track was terrible in those days. The asphalt was melting in the sun.
Yeah.
It had cow shit everywhere on the track. I mean, and potholes, and it looked like a country road. But that was one of my things which hooked me into motor racing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it was a terrible track until, and thankfully, I mean, obviously the MotoGP saved it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it today. The problem we've got with it though is that once again, it's just so bloody expensive to run meetings there because the amount they charge to race there, and increasingly, sort of at the state and the club level, they're saying, look, we just can't afford it. We just can't afford to go there. It's just too bloody expensive. If we, if we can get Calder, that's why Calder's so incredibly booked out. I mean, at the moment, and the reason why, Rodney's not going to be in any hurry to make any major changes out there. He's just going to keep, sort of, fiddling at the edges and, just basically maintaining it and improving it a little bit here and a little bit there. Because once they got back they got the track permit back again, the place was booked out within a couple of weeks. But anyway,
the Bend.
Yes, we've got
the GT Festival.
Yeah, the GT Festival. As I said, it was some good racing. I mean, the GT3s looked terrific and sound terrific. There was only about 14 cars again, but they're great cars. But I'm now under the impression, having watched that race again and having seen them, run at Phillip Island and just seen the size of the field, the variety of the field, the quality of the racing, the quality of the drivers that are there. I'm of the opinion right now the GT4, the Microscope or whatever it's called, GT4 monochrome, the monochrome GT4, whatever monochrome is, but GT4 Championship is the best national series in Australia.
They're brilliant cars, and the only reason the GT4 didn't take off earlier because it was always they were always stuck onto the back of GT3 fields. They didn't have an opportunity to build, and when you're running at the back of GT3s, no one gives you any attention. But then they hopped over to production cars and ran at the front of the production car field, and that was enough to give them a launch. Because now they're at the front of the field, and now they've got, and now we've got almost 40, well, probably more than 40 GT4s in the country now,
and there's more on the way.
Yeah, and it's turning into a fantastic category for developing young racers like Max Gagan and Rylan Gray, Jared Hughes. Blake Purdy, who's I've got Hughes reps on from South Australia, an ex-Supercar. Aaron Seaton, young Gomersall, and Ryder Quinn got his first win in the category over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, what a drive that was, coming from 23rd on the grid to come through and take the win. That was in the BMW. That was spectacular. That was spectacular stuff. Great performance, and as you say, the racing has been fantastic. If you're looking for variety, and that's what I don't find in modern motor racing is you don't have variety, but you have a look. If you want variety, you've got Porsches, you've got I don't think you've got Porsches, you've got BMWs, you've got Ford Mustangs, you've got Toyota Supras. If you want to watch your Supras race, there's Supras running around there. There's Janettas. There's all sorts of Aston Martins, McLarens, Mercedes
and AMG,
mid-engine, front-engine,
an Audi R8,
Audi R8s. There's just so many. Well, we haven't seen a Nissan yet. Remember that Nissan also do a GT4 version of the Z car. So they're so they've got someone in the fight. If they wanted to, if somebody wants to bring one or a couple of those in, they'd be fantastic. And it's not just locally. I mean, I've watched some of the World Tour, the World Challenge, European Challenge races as part of their YouTube package. I've seen the French Championship. They're all fantastic. You know, America. They're all fantastic racing.
Spain has a
Really
strong
close.
championship.
Yeah, just great stuff. So I mean, really, like apart from GT4, I think the only other category that could come close at the moment is possibly Trans Am.
Oh, I'd put Trans Am ahead. Oh, yeah, okay. Trans Am ahead of GT4 at the moment, but ahead because it's uh, it's it's just had longer to develop, and there's more of them. Um, but the cars in GT4 I find are much more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And you've got that variety. I mean, there's the variety that we see in Trans Am racing is essentially just body shells, and you've only really got two manufacturers. Okay, you do have the Dodge Challenger. There's a couple of them running around, but basically it's all Mustangs and Camaros, which is what you're basically seeing in supercars. So I think that's why they're not as interesting to me, is because I just sort of look at them as being sort of more practical, more fun and affordable supercars.
Well, they're
They don't
purpose-built
really,
race cars rather than a modification of anything that you'd see on the road. They've got more in common with more in common with, say, speedway cars or even open wheelers.
Yeah, that's it. So there is that manufacturer input coming in from into GT4 that makes them. It's like race on Sunday, buy on Monday. Okay, you're going to have a shitload of money to actually be able to do it. It's not going to say, oh wow, that BMW did brilliantly on the weekend. I'm going to go out and grab one of those. Or a McLaren. I mean, but you're not going to be doing that in a hurry. But technically, you could. So yeah,
Yeah, well, it's a GT. They're grand touring cars, not touring cars.
yeah, that's it.
The
But
grand does make a difference.
it certainly does. An
Lots of
expensive one.
grands.
Lots of
Yeah, lots of
grands.
grands.
Speaking of which, we did mention last week the Bathurst 12 hour. They did open the Wednesday afternoon. They opened the camping. There's virtually, last time I looked, which was Thursday afternoon, there was almost nothing left. It's if you're thinking of camping up at Bathurst for the 12 hour. Competition entries open, I think, tomorrow, so there for the early birds who want to get in. So if you've got a GT3 car lying in your garage somewhere or a GT4, I said
I'll
last
give
year,
Jordan Roddy a call.
hey, listen, if you can put the budget together, you've got a GT4 car. Last year for the Bathurst 12 hour, there were only, I think, 3 GT4 cars started. So you were virtually, if you finished, you were guaranteed a podium. I don't know whether it's going to be any better this year in terms of extra numbers, but certainly if you talk to most of the locals, they're saying that no, we're not really interested because
it's not their race. It's GT3's race.
Yes, GT. As far as they're concerned, it's like hey, I want to be the big. I want to be the big fish in the biggest fish in the pond. I don't want to be.
That's what held them. That's what held GT4 back all
Yeah.
these years, was being GT3's.
But I tell you what, if I had the money,
filler.
and, I don't have the money, the resources, the talent, or anything, anything like that. But if I did, and I had like a GT4 Mustang or like a fairly modern, say a Cayman or something like that, a Porsche or an Aston Martin or something that I like lying around, that's
Jordy.
I could put together the budget to sort of turn up there and go racing. I think that to be able to say, oh yes, I finished third in class at the Bathurst 12 hour would be, and if you got very lucky and you had problems with a couple of other cars, you might actually get even higher. So that's in action. But the categories are going to be basically the same as they were this year. So not a lot is changing. Hopefully we'll get a better turnout of GT3 cars. We'll have a bigger field than we did last year.
They got at the Bend on the weekend. There was 30 Group S cars. So they put on a pretty significant show, all as far as support categories go.
I've
And
always said they should run the 12-hour as a sport. They did basically one year. They had Group S, Radicals, the Porsche Michelin Sprint Cup. One year I think they even had the 944s come up from Victoria, I think. But it was an all sports car, and the Group S cars just fit in absolutely perfectly up there into that field. I know because I was standing there, sort of, at the back of the media centre, watching them come over, and John Hindhoff joined me and sort of said, doesn't that look magical? He said, that's, watching, watching these classic sport, look at the Corvettes and the Porsches and the Shelbys, and it's just, isn't it wonderful? And so you imagine, Group S sports cars, the Ferrari Challenge, the Ford Mustang, the Dark Horse Series, coming there, joining them as well. Just basically make it all sports cars, a complete sports car festival, targeted at that market. It would be even bigger than it is now, and they're sort of moving it up the scale a bit to make it sort of that high end sort of luxury brand, luxury market event, and it's certainly reflected in the cost of accommodation. I made a mistake with my accommodation and went, oops, went to rebook at the place I was staying at. The original price was $165 a night. The current price is $425 a night.
ah,
Not so. I don't think unless I dig the tent out and find a spot to go camping there, and hopefully the car will get me there. I may be missing out on the 12-hour next year, unfortunately, but never mind.
did you notice who won the Group S over the weekend? It's a familiar name.
Who was that?
Graham Gulson. No, Graham Gulson.
Oh, okay.
Son of Ray, nephew of Paul.
Paul, yeah. So there's the famous.
Yeah, it all goes from Group C racing when they had one of the JPS BMW 635s that they raced forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
So he was in a 911 Carrera.
And Jeff Morgan still running around there, and
he was second in all those races.
Yeah, so he's been running for many years in the Porsches, and ran in the old Nations Cup in Porsches. Raced a lot in Asia as well. Did a lot of Asian GT races back in the day. So he was very much a part of that. So yeah, I thought that the stuff from the Bend looked very good. I thought it was some good racing all round. Group S looked terrific. Once again, the GT3s, not a huge field, but good cars, good drivers. Congratulations to Renee Gracie as well. Won the championship. Wrapped up the AM Championship with a round to go. They're actually going to finish the year off in New Zealand at Hampton Downs.
She had an enormous lose in one of the, I think in race one, the Saturday race, she had an enormous lose off the track. Managed to not hit anything. So
well, that's one of the benefits. That's going to be one of the things that'll change this weekend for the supercars. Is that it's not like Sandown where you're going to get really badly punished. If you make even the slightest mistake at Sandown, you're going to hit a wall somewhere, and we're going to have full course yellows and safety cars out everywhere. Whereas at the Bend, there's obviously a lot more runoff, especially around the back of the circuit, where cars can go off, not hit anything, and basically just rejoin the race again. So it'll be interesting to see how many safety cars we do get on the weekend, whether we in fact get any at all, because there isn't really much to hit. So as long as they behave themselves, early
there's always
doors,
each other.
they've always got each other. That's the thing. Speaking of great meetings, the Elias French joining us saying the Baskerville Historics 31 early Holdens will be there. They were talking about this last year. If you love old Holdens racing, the Baskerville Historic is definitely the place to go. I have never seen so many 48
The
215s,
15s.
more than more FJs, FBs, FEs, going all the way back. Yeah, like tons of EH Holdens. By the way, anybody out there looking for an EH Holden, I know someone who's selling one at the moment. They're very keen to get rid of it, so if you're interested, let me know, because it's very good condition too, original condition. That's just round the corner. The guy was saying, "Oh, he's had it for sale for bloody ages," and he doesn't want to sell it to don't want to sell it to some young hoon. He said he's going to stick a bloody great Chev in it and bugger the thing up.
Just talking about categories, just off the topic side, I was at Sandown, and I've taken my XL out for a shakedown, first time in 12 months, and Blight Motorsport had a white XL out there, and it just legged out from me like I couldn't believe it. Just vanished in the distance. I had a chat to it and going, "What's the story here?" And he said, "Oh, we're trying to get a subcategory into XLs of 2 litres because they're spending a fortune on the 1500 motors."
See, this is where it goes wrong. We need to upgrade. The brakes, the original brakes aren't good enough because the tyres are too sticky, so we need to put new brakes on. Oh, now that we put the new brakes on and the new tyres, it's putting more strain on the gearboxes. So we need to change the gearbox. We need to change this. We need to change that. And before you know it, you've got a sports sedan. It'd be a
Touring car master.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens. So you see sort of see cars like
That was a Group N once upon a time.
Yeah, you see cars like the Garwood Capri, and you say, "Oh, I see a Pereira Capri. It's got the 302 Ford in it," and you're like, "Oh no, not anymore. It's got a Chev in it now." And it's like, "What? Hang on a second, what?" It's a sports sedan. It's a floor pan sports sedan. I hope that doesn't. I hope that doesn't get up, because ultimately it means for people like you and others who just don't, because it might start out cheaper to say, okay, and putting a 2 litre in one of those things is, it's not the biggest, but it's not a it's not a trivial thing. I know that there's quite a few people, because I've got the the little gets there, and I'm on sort of some of the Facebook pages, and there's quite a few people putting in 1.8 and 2 litre Elantra motors into Getzers, but they're all saying, look, it wasn't as trivial as we thought it was. It was.
I know it's not that trivial. I mean, but putting it on the road, it's putting it on a track. It's a lot easier than putting it on the road, because you got to put a new loom in a different computer and. Well,
that's true. That was actually raised. That was raised by some. There were some people, I think, who did say that we should, the old, the engines are getting hard to maintain. It's getting hard to find parts for them. Why don't we just whack a 308 crate engine into it?
You remember there was a brief attempt to create a HQ series for the later model Kingswoods, the HJs, HXs, and that didn't go well.
Yes, we've got too many. We just got too many categories. Just leave them alone. Hey, anyway, let's leave it there. By the way, Doc's not with us, but the Marquez won again in there, but it wasn't the Marquez we thought it would be. It wasn't Mark. It was Alex. So congratulations to him. It was not the most exciting race, but well done to Jack Miller. Jack Miller's finally been signed for next year. They're with the same team. He's staying around. He's going to partner Top Rack Graslioglu in the team. So he's hung on to his position there. We heard that Gunther has bought into one of the KTM teams. Well, it's also been announced that both we mentioned him before, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton have both said that we would like to buy into MotoGP. Max has already put out some feelers to get involved with a couple of teams, including the Trackhouse team, which of course have that connection with the team in the NASCAR team that Shane Van Gisbergen drives for. Apparently, Max's representatives have already been in touch with them and said Max would like to get more heavily involved with MotoGP and perhaps make an investment. And Lewis has always said that one day he'd really like to get involved in MotoGP as well. So you could have sort of Gunter Steiner,
Well,
Max Verstappen, and Lewis Hamilton
this is
all
what I'm
owning.
thinking, that Max and Lewis are actually just trying to do a public service by being able to push Gunter Steiner further down the grid and make him less uh, less obvious for the media.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't. That was another thing I didn't say. I was actually going to try and get down. I was very busy on the weekend, so I didn't have the Phillip Island Superbikes wins to Josh Waters and Ant West down there on the weekend. Some pretty tricky conditions down there at times. Race 1, Glenn Ellerton finished third after a serious back injury, causing him to miss all of it. And he's very good down at Glenn is very good down at Phillip Island. We interviewed him a couple of years ago at a state round down there. He was racing in a race down there, and was very, very proud, very happy, even though it was a state round, to have won at Phillip Island, because he just said, this track, even though he's not from Victoria, he said, this track really means a lot to me because it is the home of the MotoGP, and it's such a challenge. And he said, I'm really, really rapt to be able to win there. So well done to him. But as I said, I didn't get a chance to see any of it at all. Like I said to Mad Cow Mark before, we had drag racing from Santa Pod with the European Championships. I saw very little of that. Speaking of drag racing, coming up, the weather is, fingers crossed, but the weather is looking perfect at the moment. Low 20s, fine skies. The Sunday Fun Day, the Victorian Roll Racing Championships out at Calder Park. Drag racing from 12 till 2:30, and then roll racing from 2:30 through till about 5 o'clock. It is part of the Summit Racing Victorian Roll Racing Championships, and there's a lot more interest coming from interstate, because coming up in November, the Australian Roll Racing Championships will be held out at Calder Park. That'll be the final round of the Summit Series, and we've got already there's interest, a lot of cars from particularly New South Wales, a lot of really quick cars from New South Wales scheduled to come down for that. So that's this week. So if you're not at home, so I'm not going to be able to sit at home and watch the racing from the Bend, but also coming up this weekend, Goodwood Revival. That's coming up this weekend. The links are up already. Unfortunately, I can't put them up onto the In Pit Lane website at the moment, because the In Pit Lane website has died, and I can't get it going again. It won't let me in. So you'll just have to find it yourself on YouTube. It's very easy to find, Goodwood Road and Race on the YouTube channel, and you will get 3 days of amazingly entertaining
Awesomeness.
Racing. We also had over the weekend, Peter Auto had their latest race as well, which I think was from Paul Ricard, and they had the classic Le Mans cars, which the race was won by the Paynos. One of the Verizon Paynos took that race and looked and sounded $1 million. So lots and lots and lots and lots of motorsport. Way too much to talk about.
Couple of signings of interest. Will Power, of course, is his 17-year career with the Penske organisation has come to an end, and in the time it took to say thank you, Will, for all your time, the announcement was out there that Power is joining Andretti Global IndyCar team. So
yes, basically replacing Colton Herta, who was
He's
of
off to
course
F2.
possibly off to F2. Now that hasn't been signed yet, and it's going to be interesting how that works, because Colton Herta is not a kid. I mean, he's going to be coming out of
Yeah.
he's going to be coming out of IndyCar and being fairly successful there, but he's going to go into the hothouse of GP2, Formula 2 with the fastest drivers, the most competitive drivers straight out of karting, straight into Formula 4, straight into Formula 3, out of Formula 3, that absolute, frenzied attempt. They're going to be sort of 17, 18 years old. They know the tracks, they know the teams, they know the culture. Boy, I tell you what, it's a hell of a challenge for Colton. But then again, I mean, how serious are they in wanting him to actually race a Formula One car, and how much of it is just sort of a like a PR thing to say, hey, see, we've got an American driver, and one day, if one of our drivers gets sick or injured, he might jump in and roll around at the back of the field, thumbs up.
Well, I guess the other question that comes out of that is which one of the Cadillac boys is on a 1-year contract? Is it Bottas or is it Perez?
Yeah. Well, you would think it's both. I mean, they're not. Neither of them are particularly old. I don't think that they'd want to get rid of either of them unless they do very, very badly. I can't see them wanting to get rid of either of them for the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, they've got to make space for Herta. I mean, that's the plan, isn't it? A year in F2 and then promote to F1. So
I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're saying that for the American media. I don't think they believe
Formula 2 is brutal.
I think he'll get chewed and spat out. Also, yes, Box saying that was another thing that was on the weekend to watch, the World Time Attack in Sydney, and the Japanese driver who decided to do celebratory donuts in pit lane on the Sunday night. And the worrying thing was the idiots online who follow that sort of sector of the sport going, typical, stupid old men telling us what to do and what we can't do. It was bloody good on him. He was a legend, That was real. If you have a look at the footage, it was that could have gone very, very, very badly wrong for a lot of people. So they were very lucky they got away with that.
A lot of these rules that people complain about in motorsport have come from
hard lessons, which someone's taken the burn for.
Yeah, I think
and a lot of us, the four of us, been there when it's happened.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, if you're there and something does go wrong, and I mean, look, you stand next to cars doing burnouts like literally centimetres away from them in drag racing and all that, and you know what they're doing. They're not trying to do donuts. They're not trying to do anything silly. They're just trying to warm up their tyres and go in a straight line. But even so, you know that they can just suddenly snap sideways and be in a wall, or like in the worst case scenario, snap sideways and bash into somebody. So you've got to have your wits about you to deliberately go into to a narrow pit lane and then suddenly start doing donuts.
You remember the rocket that Craig Lowndes copped when he was still a very young racer at the time, doing burnouts at the end of the Bathurst 1000 after the crowd had started running across the track.
Yeah, and that was particular. I mean, there was a problem that made that worse. Is at the time the head of the New South Wales Police was vehemently anti-motorsport.
Well, it's a New South Wales tradition.
Yeah, well, that's it. They were trying at the time to get changes to the New South Wales Speedway Act, which effectively banned anybody under 18 from being anywhere near a race car. You weren't allowed in the pits. You weren't allowed to drive. You had the silly situation that if you had young drivers in Queensland and Victoria and anywhere else in Australia who were racing at 16 and 17, if they were in a national series, they couldn't run a New South Wales round because they couldn't even go into the paddock because it was like it's too dangerous, far too dangerous for young people. And I remember him coming on television talking like a complete idiot about this sort of thing. We're going to have this spike in death and destruction and loutish behaviour on the roads because of this hoonish. They get out there and they look at this thing happening on their television, and these idiots hooning around at irresponsible speeds and doing these irresponsible things, and they should ban the lot of it. And yeah, so he wasn't there. So thankfully, they've loosened things up a little bit up there now. But it was a big problem for a long time in New South Wales. Anyway, we've
also
way over time already.
Yeah, I just want to also throw there Nick Cassidy, former graduate of Australian Formula Ford, who's
We'll
been
say goodbye
spending a lot
to
of
Pete
time.
first. Pete's got a very, very early day tomorrow, boys.
And
So
I've got to
Pete
go
will-
myself.
Yep.
It's been good.
Okay, well,
Okay,
congrats
so
to Nick Cassidy for joining Peugeot's
Peugeot.
WAC.
Yep. I think we covered that. I think we did mention it last week. That was he was signing up with them. So yeah, good on Nick. Good to see Nick Cassidy up there. And as we said, I'll see you out at Calder Park on Sunday. Doing the be out there on commentary. We've got stuff to give away again. We're going to have giveaways. Pete's told me that he's got some plenty of stuff to give away. Lots of goodies. So we'll be giving them away if you come out to Calder on the weekend. Come up and smile and say hi. We watch you on Full Course Yellow or on In Pit Lane, and we'll see what we can do for you. Okay, everybody. Yes, Mark. I think Mark is saying good night once again. We've got our cue. Let's go good night, everyone. See you later,
Thanks.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.